There is a moment I remember clearly. I was sitting on the edge of my bed at 6 in the morning, completely exhausted even though I had just woken up. My back hurt. My energy was gone before the day had even started. I was doing everything I thought you were supposed to do. Going to the gym occasionally, trying to eat less, telling myself that next week I would be more consistent. And nothing was changing. Not my body, not my energy, not the way I felt when I looked in the mirror. And then something happened that I did not expect. I did not find a new diet. I did not buy an expensive program. I stumbled across 10 specific habits, small shifts in how I moved and lived every single day, and within months my body and my life looked nothing like they did on that morning. Today, I am going to walk you through every single one of them. And I promise you, by the time we get to habit 7, you are going to completely rethink what fitness actually means. Welcome to the Vitality Code. This channel exists for one reason: to give you real, science-backed strategies that actually work in real life. If you want more of this, hit that like button and subscribe right now because we put out new videos every week, and this community keeps growing for a reason. Now, let us get into this because the first habit on this list is one that almost nobody talks about, and it changed everything for me before I ever set foot in a gym. The first habit was something so simple it almost felt embarrassing to admit it made a difference. I started walking every single morning. Not power walking, not hiking, just walking. For 20 to 30 minutes after waking up, outside, before I looked at my phone or ate breakfast or did anything else. And within 2 weeks, something in my body shifted. My cortisol patterns changed. My appetite became more regulated. And my energy throughout the day smoothed out in a way I had never experienced before. But here is what most people do not realize about morning walking. It is not just exercise. Research published in the journal Obesity found that exposure to natural light in the morning directly influences circadian rhythm regulation, which affects metabolism, sleep quality, and fat storage patterns. The light signals your brain to calibrate its internal clock. And when that clock is set properly, every other biological system in your body functions more efficiently. I was not just walking, I was resetting my biology before the day began. The second habit took me longer to adopt because it felt counterintuitive. I stopped skipping meals and started eating more protein at breakfast. Not a protein shake. Real food. Eggs, Greek yogurt, cottage cheese. Something with substance that my body had to actually work to digest. I had spent years believing that eating less in the morning would help me lose weight, but the research tells a completely different story. A study from the University of Missouri found that eating a high-protein breakfast significantly reduced activity in the brain regions associated with food cravings and reward-driven eating throughout the entire day. What I was experiencing as afternoon cravings and poor willpower was not a character flaw. It was my brain responding to an inadequate morning fuel source by driving me toward high-calorie, high-sugar foods later in the day. Fixing breakfast fixed the rest of the day almost automatically. Now, this is where things get interesting. Because the third habit had nothing to do with food or exercise in the traditional sense, it was about water. Specifically, drinking 500 milliliters of water within the first 10 minutes of waking up, before anything else, before coffee, before food, before my phone. And the effect on my energy, my metabolism, and my hunger levels was something I genuinely did not anticipate. Research from the Journal of Clinical Endocrinology and Metabolism found that drinking water in this way raised metabolic rate by approximately 30% within 10 minutes and sustained that elevation for up to 40 minutes. I was creating a window of heightened calorie burning every single morning with a habit that cost me nothing and took less than 2 minutes. The fourth habit was the one that changed my body composition more than anything else I did. I started resistance training 3 times per week. Not every day, not for hours. 3 sessions, 30 to 45 minutes each. And I focused on compound movements, squats, deadlifts, push-ups, rows, and lunges, because these are the movements that recruit the most muscle tissue simultaneously and produce the greatest hormonal response. Here is the part that surprised researchers and surprised me. The fat loss that came from resistance training was not just from the calories burned during the workout. It came from what happened after. Every time you challenge your muscles with resistance, you create microscopic damage in the muscle fibers. Repairing that damage requires energy, significant energy. For up to 72 hours after a resistance training session, your body is burning additional calories to rebuild and strengthen the tissue you worked. This is why people who resistance train consistently have higher resting metabolic rates than people who only do cardio. You are not just burning calories. You are raising the floor of how many calories your body burns every single day. That is not even the most important part, because habit 5 was the one that made everything else work better. I made sleep non-negotiable, 7 to 9 hours, every night, not as a luxury, as a biological requirement. And I want to tell you something that I had never understood before I started taking sleep seriously. Sleep is not rest. Sleep is work. During the deepest stages of sleep, your body releases the majority of its daily growth hormone, which is the primary hormone responsible for fat metabolism, muscle repair, and cellular regeneration. It resets your hunger hormones so that ghrelin, which drives appetite, drops back to baseline, and leptin, which signals fullness, rises. It regulates cortisol, your stress hormone, which when chronically elevated promotes fat storage specifically in the abdominal area. Every single fitness goal you have is either supported or sabotaged by the quality of your sleep. And once I treated it as a performance tool, rather than something I could negotiate with, my results accelerated in a way that felt almost unfair. Habit 6 was one I resisted for a long time because I thought it was too simple to matter. I started taking a 10-minute walk after every meal. Not a long walk, just a gentle stroll. And what this did to my blood sugar was something I could feel within days. Research published in the journal Sports Medicine found that even a 2 to 5 minute walk after eating significantly blunted the blood sugar spike that follows a meal. And why does that matter? Because blood sugar spikes drive insulin release. And chronic insulin elevation is one of the primary hormonal drivers of fat storage. By walking after meals, I was using my muscles to absorb glucose from the bloodstream before insulin had to do it, keeping my insulin levels lower throughout the day and creating a hormonal environment that was far more conducive to fat burning and far less conducive to fat storing. The 7th habit is where most people's eyebrows go up, because I stopped doing long cardio sessions and replaced them with short, intense efforts. Specifically, I started doing 2 sprint sessions per week. Each session lasted less than 20 minutes, including warm-up. And what happened to my body composition in the weeks after I made this switch was more dramatic than anything I had experienced from months of steady jogging. The science behind this is well established. High-intensity interval training, even in very short sessions, produces a significantly greater release of growth hormone and catecholamines compared to steady-state cardio. Catecholamines are the hormones that directly signal fat cells to release stored fat into the bloodstream. A study from the University of New South Wales found that women who performed 20 minutes of interval training 3 times per week lost 3 times more body fat than women who performed 40 minutes of steady cardio 3 times per week, half the time. 3 times the fat loss. The intensity, not the duration, is what drives the result. Habit 8 changed my relationship with stress in a way that directly affected my body. I started a 5-minute breathing practice every evening. Just 5 minutes of slow, controlled breathing with a longer exhale than inhale. This activates the parasympathetic nervous system, which is the body's rest and recovery state. Research has shown that even brief daily practices like this can lower cortisol levels, reduce systemic inflammation, and improve heart rate variability, which is one of the strongest markers of overall cardiovascular health and resilience. But here is what most people miss. Stress management is not just mental health, it is metabolic health. When cortisol stays elevated chronically, your body stores fat more readily, breaks down muscle more easily, and resists the hormonal conditions necessary for meaningful body composition change. Managing stress is part of the fitness equation whether you think of it that way or not. The 9th habit was about consistency over intensity. I stopped trying to be perfect and started trying to be present. I committed to showing up for my habits at least 80% of the time and completely releasing guilt about the other 20. And something counterintuitive happened. My results got better, not worse. Research on habit formation shows that the all-or-nothing mindset is one of the primary drivers of long-term failure. When people believe that one missed workout or one off-plan meal has ruined their progress, they are significantly more likely to abandon the effort entirely. But when people adopt a flexible percentage-based approach, they maintain consistency over months and years rather than weeks. And in fitness, months and years are where the real transformation lives. The 10th habit was the last one I added, and in some ways the most powerful. I started tracking my non-exercise movement throughout the day and making deliberate choices to increase it. Taking stairs instead of elevators, parking further away, standing during phone calls, pacing while thinking. These tiny movements, which researchers call NEAT or non-exercise activity thermogenesis, can account for up to 300 to 500 extra calories burned per day in active individuals compared to sedentary ones. That is the equivalent of an additional workout, created entirely from micro-decisions spread across your waking hours. I was not adding more gym time. I was turning my entire day into a low-level, fat-burning environment. When I look back at where I started, sitting exhausted on the edge of that bed, and where these 10 habits took me, the change is not something I can fully describe in a single video. It is not just physical. It is the way I feel when I wake up, the way my brain works in the afternoon, the way I handle stress, the way I sleep, the energy I bring to the people around me. None of these habits are extreme. None of them require a gym membership or a special diet or an hour you do not have. They require a decision, a repeated decision made day after day to do small things consistently. And that consistency, compounded over time, becomes something that looks to the outside world like a transformation, but feels from the inside like simply becoming the person you were always capable of being. Drop a comment below and tell me which of these 10 habits you're going to start with, or tell me which one surprised you the most. I read every single comment, and hearing where people are starting from genuinely helps me make better videos for this community. And if you know someone who is stuck, who is doing the same things and getting the same results, and wondering why nothing is changing, share this video with them today. Sometimes all it takes is one new idea at the right moment. Your body does not need a dramatic overhaul. It needs the right habits, done consistently, for long enough to work. 10 habits. That is all it took, and they are all yours now.